Today I will present two works that can be ascribed to performance art. The performance site was realized in 1964 by Robert Morris and Carolee Schneeman, and Lips of Thomas, a work that I have presented in my first video, by Marina Abramović, realized in 1975. I will provide two concise descriptions of these performances before then subsequently comparing them. In Lips of Thomas, Abramović had created a specific setting. We see the symbol of the star painted on one of the gallery's walls behind her. She sat at a table, drank excessively, consumed a jar of honey, and inflicted harm to her body by cutting a star into her abdomen. Finally, she lay on a cross or crucifix of ice for a long time, for far too long. So some visitors felt a tension whether she could severely harm herself, and the performance ended because some members of the audience ran towards Abramović and tore her off the cross, of the crucifix. The performance site was realized by Robert Morris and Carolee Schneeman in 1964. Initially, the audience could see nothing but a white box standing on a stage. Made of plywood, it resembled the objects Robert Morris built for the Judson Dance Theatre. The Judson Dance Church was a place for experimental dance and music at the time in New York. Morris then took the stage and began to deconstruct the object, the box, removing one panel after the other. Wearing a mask, a cast of his own face, we can guess whether he was playing himself or whether he referred to him as a performance artist. He removed one panel after the other and gave view to Carolee Schneeman sitting inside the box. She was legible as a reenactment of Olympia, the famous painting by Edouard Manet, first shown in 1863, so approximately 100 years before Morris and Schneeman took up the motif for their performance. The work differs in that Morris and Schneeman do not introduce symbols such as a star or a crucifix. Instead, the performance is based on a reenactment of a famous painting, on an icon instead of a symbol. And yet, as this work has no literary basis, the performer's roles and also the elements and objects of the play can be read in multiple ways. Let's take, for instance, Carolee Schneeman. How can we interpret the role performed by her? Does she play herself? That is she the performance artist Carolee Schneeman? Or, with her body painted white, does she allude to Schneemann, which is the German word for snowman? Or does her appearance relate to the box Robert Morris built around her? Should she be read as freight, therefore alluding to the transport of precious artworks? You see, there are multiple questions. And also Robert Morris. Is he a performer, or is he just engaged in his usual bread and butter job, namely building props for theater stages? Does he just reverse the usual process of his work, turning back time? Or should the cast of his face on his face be interpreted as a double layer that emerges as soon as he takes the stage? We see there are a lot of questions and no answers. There is no right or wrong in this in interpreting this work, but a multiplication of meanings that theater scholars can discuss when analyzing works such as Lips of Thomas or Sight. At first glance, these two works seem entirely different. Only by taking a closer look can we see that both share a major characteristic of performance art. So when we dig deeper into their structure, namely what they share is that every symbol, every element and every word, or either spoken or written, take on multiple meanings. In my first video dwelling on Erika Fischer-Lichte, I have already shown that Lips of Thomas resists semiotic reading. Why? The symbols used by Abramović can be read in multiple ways. I will take a closer look on semiotic reading. In semiotics, the signifier and the signified are the two main components of a sign. A semiotic reading is based on a close relation between signifier and signified. So, what is a signifier? It is the material form of the sign, spoken sound of a word, or the word in written form, like star, stella, étoile, Stern. So there is a close relation between signifier and signified, but the relation is also arbitrary. However, it will be understood by other people knowing or speaking the same language. Signified is the concept, the mental image that every person has when he or she thinks of a star, for instance. So it's the mental image or idea. The real physical object, such as a star in the night sky, belongs to the referent and is not part of the sign itself. The literary basis of a theatrical play, last time we saw Romeo and Juliet, ensures that elements are interpreted according to or in relation to the original text, so that every symbol, sign, element and word can be understood clearly and directly. Performance art lacks any narrative, therefore, usually lacks a narrative. Therefore, the relation between signifier and signified is widened, which makes performance so interesting to watch, to observe. In performance, signs do not refer to fixed and closed meanings, but they remain open, and as a result, every element takes on multiple meanings, and each time we see a performance, even if it's the same performance in the same theater, new ideas might come up. Both Lips of Thomas and Sight loosen the relation between signifier and signified. This constitutes their similarity. However, there are also differences. While Lips of Thomas operates with symbols drawn from religious, ideological and spiritual Western tradition, such as star and the crucifix, side presents performers' roles and elements becoming ambiguous and open to multiple interpretations. Side demonstrates that ambiguity in reading can affect the elements of the performance, and thus, and this is important here, does not apply only to the level of symbols. And there is a further interesting question that I find really interesting when analyzing side. Is it really true that every element of the structure can be read in multiple ways? Or are there elements and structures that are closely related to art history traditions, as we find in paintings and are repeated? Inside, we observe a man-woman divide. The woman, Schneeman, nude and passive, embodies the physical sensitive side of the divide. The man, Morris, is the hard worker, wearing clothes and constructing the side on stage, directing therefore our gaze towards Schneeman. The woman-man divide was established during the Renaissance and has changed little since. So there is no opening and reinterpretation in that sense, I would argue. In my next video, I will discuss this divide in relation to my recently published study, The Inherent Potential in Art Performance.